Hello, 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 and welcome to the No Faces Comic Chat. I'm your host, Bub, and with me, as always, or at least every other Monday, we have the one, the only, they broke the mold because it smelled like mold, Metarog.
Yeah, hi. Oh, boy. Yeah. Great to be back with you guys. That intro was very unusual, but thank you very much, I guess.
Well, we prefer to call it one of a kind.
Okay, fine. Unique, true.
All right, that's enough out of you. With us on a semi-regular basis, but we hope he becomes more like Raisin Bran, DS Comics.
What is up? Greetings and salutations.
Ooh, thanks for the salutations.
You're welcome.
I needed those. All right, good to have you. Glad we could all be here this evening. Sorry we couldn't make it last week. DS had to work and Roger was busy experimenting with gamma rays. Is that right, Roger?
Something like that. I was a little bit.
What
under
was
the
it
weather,
like?
Let's just put it that way.
Oh, okay.
Well, sore throat, I guess. That was about it.
Oh, I thought you were huffing fumes.
Well, you know, have you that game Telephone, whisper to somebody's ear and it goes around 10 times, but it's totally different. That's your kind of filter.
Yes, I'm familiar with that game. I believe it's a condition of DS's parole that he not play that game, but let's hear from him. How are you doing, DS?
I am great. I think I played that game last maybe 40 years ago.
Did you hear that, Roger? He played that 50 years ago.
That game's nothing but trouble. If you want to get yourself in trouble, play that game. The huffing was much more fun than that game.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Let's see. With us in the chat, we have a lot of people that were here last week and some people that are here this week. We got Las Cruces 1971 greetings and salutations, as we've been told to say. We have Beef It. How you doing? Hiya, he says. Not Hail Hydra. That's how they say it fast. I say Hail Hydra real fast. It's hiya. The Jackson Roy Kirk has come to. He's beamed down. You see what I did there? He's a big Battle Star Wars Trek fan. Is that right? Did I say that right?
One of those, yeah.
All right. And we got Morris Bad Dad 320s in the house. He's only 100 away from his dream vacation. We've got Benny Compton's here as well. Good to see you, BC. All right. I think that's everybody. Oh, look at the bros in the house. The Hialeah comic bro, that is. All right. Good to have you guys. People are just trickling in here. Always nice to see the tricklers. There he is. And so, does anyone remember from 6 weeks ago what our team name is this evening? Honestly, I don't even remember.
Yeah, it's the oldies but goodies.
Yep, that's it. Is that what you had, Roger?
I thought it was something like the Last Chance Legionnaires, but maybe I'm wrong.
All right. So DS is getting oldie and Roger's got Legionnaires disease, but I don't think it's either one of those. It's it's the all new originals. How do you like that?
All new originals.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with the topic?
Yeah, not one of your best, but it makes sense, I guess.
Let me tell you, it sounded great a week ago. You should have been there.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I feel like the topic is just baiting me to go on rants. I'm just throwing it out there ahead of time.
It is. It's a total rant bait.
Of course it is. Yeah. Not just you, everybody, right? I mean,
yeah, well, exactly. But, I love ranting, so I'll try to not monopolize the time and keep us here 4 hours. But, yeah.
That sounds good to me. But, Roger, we have to ask you a quick question. What's with your silver balls?
It's part of the season, it's Advent, it's Christmas time, it's all that great stuff that we went through as kids, and I still consider myself a kid, so I continue to go through it, and I put a little little celebratory area here for my comic book ad calendar. And I just am bringing it out here for the No Faces chat for everybody else to enjoy.
Oh my gosh. Did you see that mistletoe over the silver balls? Show that again. Oh my. I believe that'd be a good belt for Norin Rad. What do you think? What do you think, Diaz?
That's a pretty good setup you got there. I like it.
That's Norin Rad's belt buckle right there.
Yeah, look, I got a nativity over here. I got a pine cone over here. I got lights, which I can switch on. Hold on, let me see.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, there we go. There go the lights.
Special effects.
There go the lights right there.
I think the lights froze up your internet. You better
hold on.
Kill the juice, Roger. Kill the juice.
There they are. There they are.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, not bad.
That is something. Nah, I feel underdressed.
I spared no expense for you guys.
Yeah, you spared some expense. Let's not go overboard here.
Yeah, we have zero Christmas decorations up. We don't really celebrate it, so I've got nothing in the whole house. There's nothing.
I've got in the living room. I've got the tree up, and I've got the we did put up Christmas, but we kind of keep it all in the front of the house. There's just like a random candle with some berries around it here and there, but for the most part, Christmas is in the front of the house. And I've got a couple of my Christmas treasuries adorning the coffee tables.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
To peruse. Nice low grade copies. Everybody picks it up and like, oh, this thing must be old. I'm like, yes. In the Wayback Machine of 1975.
Hey, 1975 is not old.
I know it's not, but when you see these low grades, low grade treasuries.
Although I'll tell you, that's coming up on 50 years. But
I guess that's true.
Doesn't seem that long ago.
Yeah, that's recent memory for me. I was picking up comics from 7-Eleven in 75. So
I know. Thank goodness you started paying for them in 78.
What?
Hey,
those
Rogers 5-finger discount strikes again.
I never did time in juvie. Let's are all vicious rumors.
That's right. He jumped out of the squad car on the way there. Good man. All right, so let's talk about our topic for this evening. Roger, if you say that it's so off topic, then what is the topic for this evening? You must be ready with that.
Well, I thought it was the point in which your love for a character went away. In other words, where you stopped collecting a certain character.
Yes, that's exactly what it was. How could you think any different?
Well, you said all the originals. I don't know. It just doesn't click for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just mentally not there with the title. But anyway, I do like the topic. I think the topic is great.
All right, we'll take that. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. We're just looking for the third. All right then. Fair enough. So DS must have a book ready for this. So let's hear from him first. And I also wanted to say that next week or the next show, we're going to change the topics up a little bit. We're going to try a slightly new format. I hope everyone's on board with that. But first off, so enjoy it while you can is what I'm saying. This might be our last episode of this same format. We're going to spice things up a little bit for the next one, for the new year at least. So DS, what was the point at which you jumped off a character and why? And if you've got the issue number and all that, we'd appreciate it. But if not, as best as your near 50-year-old memory can serve.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was younger is when I mostly was into the superhero stuff. And I really liked all the superheroes in the 80s, the comics that were coming out. I was reading them all the time and buying them off the newsstand up and through probably like 93 or 94. For like a 10-year span, I was into the new stuff back then. And, I had some older Ghost Riders, and I really liked Ghost Rider. It was sort of like an Evel Knievel with a dark side, is like the image I always got from it in the 80s. And then I remember the Ghost Rider 1 and all the new Ghost Riders that were starting to come out, the Danny Ketch stuff.
Yeah.
And that motorcycle is like, I don't know, it was like the Knight Rider motorcycle. It wasn't as badass. It was too sleek and too covered up. You couldn't see like the chrome. There's no chrome on that motorcycle. Now, I'm not like a big biker guy, obviously, but this is Ghost Rider to me. Super cool. I mean, you got chrome. You can hear this thing by looking at the cover. You can just hear it. And then I see the Danny Ketch one when that came out. I bought some of them. And aside from the satiny paper, which I never liked, I don't know, the bike didn't seem as ominous in the scenes. I don't know, when he rides into the scenes in the older stuff, in the original series here, it's very ominous. I don't know. And then the Danny Ketch stuff, I was like, it didn't have the same impact to me, and I lost interest in the character. And I remember even back then when I owned some of those newer Ghost Rider books, I bought them just because, it's a new Ghost Rider. And I didn't really like them. I read them and I was like, I'm not really into it. And I just lost interest in Ghost Rider until I got back into comics, as an adult, 6, 7 years ago, whatever. And, I've had a few copies of this, a couple of Marvel Spotlight 5s, and I've had some, random other issues. And I realized you can just stay with the old one. And if you like Ghost Rider, there you go. So yeah, Ghost Rider. I lost interest when they I don't know, lamified the bike, so to speak.
Yeah, they had the fire wheels.
It doesn't get more badass for a biker hero than this bike. You can't improve on that, nor should you try. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, the flaming wheels on the Danny Ketch bike just never. It never looked right to me. It was cool in a sense, but it wasn't really frightening. It wasn't really intimidating. It was just kind of had that factor. I also like you. I mean, pretty much the same thing, word for word. The only thing I would say is that I thought the Danny Ketch character was a good character, but I just didn't think that he was being portrayed at that time in a way that it would interest me. It seemed like all the battles, were you just went from one to another, and they weren't really broadening the character. Unlike the Johnny Blaze, where he was going through all kinds of turmoil all the time, and he grew throughout that process.
Yeah, I feel like the destruction that he leveled against people and villains back then was sort of a mirror of what the internal conflicts he was going through and the stuff he's going through by himself. And the Danny Ketch, it sort of didn't seem like that was the same. I mean, but it was the bike. It was the bike mostly. But look, that's a good character. That was a good storyline. The writing is decent. I don't have any actual problem with it as an art form. It's just once the bike changed, it sort of emasculated the Ghost Rider that I liked. And I lost interest. But then, I got back into comics. I really like the old Ghost Rider. I mean, I don't hold on to these superhero books very long, but I do buy and sell a lot of them. Fair amount. And I've had a lot of Ghost Rider stuff come through here in the last 5 or 6 years. And it's all the old stuff. I really like it. But, I wouldn't be opposed to picking up, the Danny Ketch Ghost Rider 1 if I found a nice copy, because I think it's a good investment. And that's most likely as an MCU spec sort of character, they would probably go with that one, I think. I think more people would relate to that. But, the 70s, you have bikers and you have kung fu, and that stuff doesn't really relate to what's going on now. So I don't think they would go with a guy like this. Although they did do a Shang-Chi, which was all right. I watched that movie. But those were 70s.
I don't know what they're going to do with the Ghost Rider character in the MCU. Because, we had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. seemed to be a one-way MCU show. Meaning the events and characters in the MCU were in the show, but whenever new things were introduced from the show, they didn't make their way to the MCU. Does that make sense? So, like, for instance, in Thor, you had Sif, right? So Lady Sif makes an appearance in a couple of episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. But Coulson also is from the MCU, right? He's from the Avengers, Phil Coulson. And he is obviously the hinge of that show, but then nothing from that show goes back to the MCU. Like, they're always dealing with Kree tech and all kinds of stuff's falling to earth. They deal with all that stuff, but nothing goes back to the movies. Now, they had Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider in the car, which is terrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrible to put Ghost Rider in a car.
I've never read any of that. Yeah.
It's horrible. Again, the character's not too bad. I actually like the backstory and everything. I think it's kind of cool. His backstory is kind of neat and distinct. And I thought the actor who played him did a really good job too. But that Ghost Rider never really came out of the show and into the movies. But technically, I would say that they have a Ghost Rider, and it's Robbie Reyes in the car, technically. But I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess the argument can be made.
Give it time, and Ghost Rider will have pink hair and will be on a Segway. I mean, that's the direction the shit goes. So whatever. See what I'm saying? It's just, we're going down the road. We need to get back to the fundamentals, folks. We need to get back to basics. Ghost Rider on a Harley. That's Ghost Rider. Once you open the door to all these new fangled things, you lose what Ghost Rider is. Now, you can do with other characters. We're probably going to talk about a bunch. You can modernize and change and update characters forever if it's the right character done the right way. But look, Ghost Rider has got a freaking flaming skull, and he's riding a Harley. If you change any of that, it's not Ghost Rider anymore. That is Ghost Rider. There's no other way to do Ghost Rider. I'm sorry.
That's fair.
That's how I feel about it.
All right. I think we poor Ghost Rider. Yeah. All right, Roger. I'm sure you've got a bunch of stuff to go. So I'll go next. Yeah. And I knew you knew that was coming. I'm going to talk about my favorite character, Wolverine. Now, in Wolverine number 75, Magneto strips, spoiler for those of you who haven't read it yet, shame on you. Magneto strips all the adamantium off of Wolverine's bones and leaves him with bone claws. That's hard enough to take. But by issue 105, they have already removed his nose and given him this terrible do-rag that gets half ripped off in every issue, and he's like reverting to his animal self. And it's just terrible. He's nothing but grunts and inconsistent. It's just terrible. Like, if you were going to do that to him, you should have completely removed him, canceled his title, let him act like this weird old mutant in the regular X-Men storyline, and then let's keep him somewhat normal in this. But it was just Lost the Adamantium was hard enough for me to read, even though it was a good storyline. It's hard enough for me to read past that. And he doesn't get them back until I think 125. So you've got 50 issues of no adamantium. That's hard enough for an ongoing reader to stand. But then you give him this feral attitude. It was absolutely unreadable. A terrible little run of Wolverine. Avoided it at all costs, unless someone like pays you to read it. Then go ahead. But that's not, hashtag not my Wolverine right there. It's just terrible. Yeah, it looks cool, I guess. He takes that mask off and his nose is gone. It's just like two holes in his head. It's absolutely horrible.
Who's the artist on that cover?
That is Roger Perez.
No.
It's a Roger Perez cover, you guys.
No, it is not.
I don't know who did that. It's not a bad cover.
No, it's not bad.
I think it says Willie 96.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty good Wolverine. That looks like, if I was reading Wolverine, I saw that, I'd be like, yeah, I'll buy this. This looks like this will be a good Wolverine story, because it looks like, he's vicious and he's unhinged and he's got his claws out. Like, that's the Wolverine we want to see. Yeah.
Oh man, look at this. Look, we got $3 in here. When did Bubsy stop reading My Little Pony? Trick question. The answer is I never started, but the real answer is I never stopped. Never stopped reading My Little Pony. So he gets the classic 2, and I know this is DS's favorite, and a half.
There it is.
DS is just a big fan of strong-willed gorillas. That's all.
Buy one, get one free.
Thank you, Bill.
Unruly Simeon is.
Yeah, that's the half off, and I feel like
I think that's a relative there or something.
Sometimes Bill throws in those those oddball donations because he wants the half off. You got to give it to him.
I think he does.
I bet you that's his
You
favorite.
got to give them what they want, right? Yeah.
Hey, Jambo's in the house. Let's see who else we got. Fish Cat Collectibles is here. That's not Catfish, so you guys can subscribe without any worries. It's Fish Cat. BUB'SCon will happen 2023. Reserve your car. April 2023. BUB'SCon is happening. In case you guys missed any of my other streams.
Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Unruly's comment. He said the entire original Wolverine ongoing was mediocre.
Oh no, it isn't.
So the limited series, the Frank Miller limited 1 through 4. I love that one. I love it.
Yeah,
I have
me
it
too.
in reprints. I read it. I love the art in that. I know some people aren't Frank Miller fans. It's got a style that I like. It's that slashing, simplistic, minimalist sort of slashing style. I like it. But that story was obviously well written. One of the best writers of all time.
Yeah.
The ongoing, I liked the ongoing, but it wasn't. I could see where some people would say it's mediocre, but I thought the battles with the villains, especially in the early ones, were good. The Sabretooth, the Silver Samurai stuff. I really liked the battles in the early part of that run. I didn't read the run all the way through. I sort of lost interest there.
Honestly, I love everything in Madripoor. That whole Madripoor scene, I think give me a story of Wolverine and Madripoor any day. I love it. Absolutely love it. How he was kind of working in and out of the bars. I like the patch persona. It's just really good.
Yeah, I thought it was good, but again, I only read like the first for a while. I lost, I started to get out of comics as we got into the 90s. So I only really read the first, I don't know, probably 15 issues of that or something before I really stopped collecting it. But I enjoyed it. I remember picking those up every month. And
then you got Bloodscream and the whole story with Sabretooth and who's the guy who is also from the old Weapon X program that they keep meeting up with? I forget his name. Was
it Cyber?
No, not. It's like Maverick or I feel like it's Maverick. Okay. But anyway, they meet up with him, and then the LCD storyline, and the Albert storyline. I mean, there's some good stuff comes out of there. It does start falling apart by issue probably 50 or so. That last issue 50 storyline's really good, where they meet up with that supercomputer, and then after that, it starts getting kind of
I think 50 might have been the last issue I bought because that was that yellow die cut cover, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember buying that one just because I wasn't buying that title at that point, but then that one I was like, oh, I gotta pick this one up. This one's super cool. And that was, I think, the last one I bought. But then at some point I ended up with just randomly like 70 or 72 or whatever was, or maybe 80, whatever was the test tube one.
Yeah.
They were supposed to be
test
the first
babies.
Was a test tube 80 or something like that. I don't know how I ended up with that, but yeah, that was all right. Unruly's not a fan. I get that, but yeah, I mean, if I'm going to go Wolverine, I'm just going to go 4-issue miniseries. That's it for me. And then, actually some of the Uncanny, I mean, the best Wolverine stories are where he's the lead in some of the Uncanny X-Men books, honestly.
Yeah, and the straight up Jim Lee X-Men run, the first 25 issues of Jim Lee X-Men is pretty fantastic too. And Wolverine features prominently in there too.
Yeah, but I mean, like the 160 through 180 of the Uncanny X-Men run has some really good Wolverine stuff.
Oh yeah, when he goes to Japan and all that.
Part of that follows the Wolverine.
Follows the miniseries. Yeah.
I think 7.
Yeah, that was good stuff. To me, Wolverine. I wasn't a big fan. I think the first 50 issues was pretty good, but when he started becoming like pretty much indestructible, that's when I sort of tuned him out, but that was later on in the 90s or early 2000s. The way that he grew as a character, and he like Bub was saying in Madripoor, he had that kind of like, sort of like hidden life, that kind of expanded how he, how old he is and how he actually existed and got around. That made sense. But when they started, hacking off limbs and they would grow back, that's forget it. I'm out.
Yeah, and the Jim Lee X-Men series had some good Wolverine art and stories too. And I mean, he wasn't indestructible. I mean, I remember the one issue Magneto pulled the adamantium right out of him entirely, and almost killed him. Yeah. So he got beat up pretty good back in the day. I didn't read it into the 90s, so I don't recall a period where he was indestructible. I just remember he was always getting destroyed, but he would heal. But he was getting tore up all the time, and he was near death quite a few times, but he had healing factors, and sometimes they pull other people in to help him out or whatever. Yeah, old school Wolverine's good. I don't know about. One of the most disappointing Marvel movies was the Logan, and he was just like an old grumpy sad sack. I didn't like that. Seriously, all he did, he usually is sarcastic with sort of a positive outlook, if that makes sense. He's got that cheat and grin where he's happy to be an ass, but he wasn't like depressed about it. And in Logan, the movie Logan, he was all depressed about everything all the time, and he was just negative and like a sad sack. I didn't like how that was in that movie.
It was very violent too, extremely violent.
I wasn't worried about the violence, but yes.
Well, I'm saying to juxtapose that grumpiness, it was just it went from a dour kind of Wolverine to there must have been hundreds of deaths in that film, although most of them they didn't really show them graphically. But man, that was something else.
Well, Wolverine's one of the first heroes that started actually killing people, because prior to that in the 60s and early 70s, no villains ever really got killed. No heroes really ever killed anyone. I mean, some of the villains died, but it was sort of like, even if the hero took part in the killing, they felt bad about it.
Yeah.
Right. And then when you got like Punisher and Wolverine on the scene, it was no holds barred, and they're just killing people left and right. I mean, I don't know who's killed more between the two of them, but if you add them up, they've killed more than every hero ever from 61 to 74.
I'd say so.
True. I mean, just X-Men 133, Wolverine just slaughtered a bunch of those henchmen, So.
All right. Look, we've been neglecting these fine folks. They're making some good points. Most important one here, let's get back up to it, was I lost them all. Here it is. BUB'S Con 2023 is happening. Thank you for that. Patrick Wall's already got his ticket at will call. You know why? Because I owe that man $20, and instead I'm going to exchange it for a ticket to BUB'S Con 2023. There it is. Jamie Sandoval's in the house as well. Because that's what happened. Yep, we always got to worry about him. Unruly agrees with Roger as always. All right, so we got Benny.
Yeah, and then
here.
So let me clarify for Patrick Wall. He was surprised that I said the second best X-Men movie, Logan, was no good. For me, look, you all know my movie taste in superhero movies and comic movies. I like Batman and Robin. That's one of my favorites. Okay, so it's not always about how realistic or true to the comics or whatever, but I like the X-Men, the Days of Future Past. I like Apocalypse a lot. I like all the X-Men movies with the new actors. And then the older ones with Halle Berry and Storm, that group they're all right. They're not great. Logan, I don't think is that good. It's watchable, but the X-Men movies with the younger actors I really like. And I like the Phoenix movie too. You know what I mean? I just like that new group of actors, and I thought all those movies were those are my favorite X-Men movies. And Days of Future Past is probably my favorite X-Men movie.
You guys know that DS has a long history of choosing terrible movies as his favorites. So just give him a break.
Batman and Robin, I'll tell you, it is so campy on purpose, and it's so well done. It is a joy to behold.
Jason, Southern Comic Geeks here. He can save us from this. This is terrible. This show's going off the rails. All right, Roger. I'm sorry I ever brought up Wolverine. Roger, what do you got? What do you got? Who do you want to rant about when they changed your beloved character?
Well, let me just start with, since we're segueing here real quickly into X-Men. This is not. This is not where I dropped the X-Men, by the way, but my other X-Men are buried there. But to me, where after Paul Smith left in the 180s or 170s, and John Romita Jr. took over the art chores on X-Men, I stuck around till like issue 200, and I could not take it anymore. I just could. I was just I was like, get this guy off this title. They didn't listen to me. So I dropped X-Men like a hot potato at 200 because I just could not take that art style. It was just repulsive to me. Compared to John Byrne, you put a John Romita, it's like, what? And then Paul Smith was pretty good, to bridge to another artist. So X-Men 200 is where I took off, or the trial of Magneto, where they tried to sort of, make him a little more palpable, and actually took over the school from Xavier, etc. That I didn't mind the writing. Claremont was still on the comic at the time, but the art just, it was like just so abrasive to me. So that's enough said about that. Everybody,
coincidentally, around 200 or 201 is where I probably stopped reading X-Men. But I'll tell you, prior to that is when I was in comics when I was younger. I liked every single X-Men story I've ever read, art and story, all of them. And I was a huge X-Men fan. I liked the Jim Lee stuff. I liked all the Uncanny stuff that was coming out that I read. And then, honestly, now that I've gotten older and bought some Silver Age X-Men, I like all the Silver Age X-Men, but the further back you go, the goofier they get. Yeah, so if you get too early in the X-Men Silver Age run, the stories become, how most of the early 60s Marvel stuff is. It's kind of goofy and childish to me. But
you can definitely tell why people weren't buying them.
Yeah, but if you get into like the, I don't know, like the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s of the original X-Men run, that's pretty good stuff. I mean, some of the villains are goofy because they're trying to just throw out a lot of villains. And I feel like Fantastic Four and the Avengers had great villains, and then the X-Men were like the reject villains that they picked for that title. We got a bunch of weird villains that are just horrible. They're not drawn well because probably nobody cared to draw them well because they're just stupid. Yeah, but the stories are good. They're decent, but the further back you go in the Silver Age run, the worse the stories get, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Those early X-Men are hard to take. They're really bad stories.
I mean, they're classic. They're fun to read, but they're not like, it's not quality comic reading.
No.
The 80s stuff, the 80s into like 90 or 91, I liked all that. I can't really think of any X-Men stories I didn't like when I was reading them.
Yeah.
Wow, you guys.
I agree with that. Okay, so that's just sort of a segue there, but the one I wanted to talk about is my.
No, that counts as your pick, Roger.
No,
DS, what do you got now?
No. We're back. That was a segue into the Wolverine thing. My beloved Legion of Superheroes, which I had been reading religiously since the early 70s. So I have about a 20-some year run of that, 25-year run, I believe, of that title, because I went back, I collected back into the 60s. But here during 0 Hour, which was in 94, that's when I left the title. Now, the Legion of Superheroes had really two titles at this point. There was a clone Legion, sort of, maybe, possibly, that was the Legionnaires, which was a whole nother team, by the way, which gave me problems at that point, which was a few years before 0 Hour. But once 0 Hour hit, they sort of reset everything, all continuity out the window. They sort of modernized, which seems oxymoronic for a 30th century team. But they sort of modernized the team and the framework, and at that point, I thought it was time to leave it, and I did. Although I still picked it up here and there because, some little interesting tidbits came up. But as far as my complete run, my allegiance to the Legion, it ended in 0 Hour.
Wow. It's hard for me because a lot of the 0 Hour stuff is unreadable. So to single out just the Legionnaires, like, of all the DC reboot style series that they did, they're almost all terrible.
Agreed. But again, I'm sort of, I could pick a lot of different series, but this is the one that I was very invested in for 25 years. So, when you cut off a series or a character, a series of a team of characters after that long, there has to be something pretty dynamic, something pretty different for me to say, I no longer want to follow these characters. And you're right, Zero Hour was it was very messy. Unlike Crisis, which had its logic to it, Zero Hour seemed very forced. Just they wanted to reboot DC, and so they concocted this event. And it just, to me, it seemed artificially and unneeded.
It's difficult. It's a sludge fest.
Yeah. That's a good description. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Roger takes a salve to clear up his Legionnaires.
I haven't really ever read any of that run, so I don't really know anything about it. But
don't start with that issue, Roger says.
Yeah, no, I can't.
No,
I can't comment on the Legionnaires.
No.
I don't know. Another one I threw up here was. I guess this is the only Joker book cover that I own. This is, I think it's related to the topic, but like, when did I stop liking the Joker? The Joker is one of those characters that has almost more iterations of his look and his sort of demeanor than any other like character or villain I can even think of, honestly. I mean, especially when in the movies and in the comics, there's so many variations of the Joker. But I don't know. I really liked the Joker in the 80s. I'm a big Norm Brayfogle fan. That Joker was cool. I really liked how he was drawn, and he was diabolical, very dark. I haven't read too much of the Golden Age stuff, but, that is what it is. And then in the movies, especially, I feel like each movie version is getting worse. So I'm not done with the Joker, but I don't know. They're starting to make him like too well groomed and not as diabolical or something. The Christopher Nolan Joker in the movies was probably my favorite because even the makeup wasn't even on in a neat fashion. His hair was all over the place. The Jared Leto one, I don't know. He's like too well groomed or something. I don't know. The hair's wrong. There's something about it. I just can't. So I guess I'm at that point now where I'm like on the fence about not liking the current versions of the Joker. But I don't read new DC books, so I don't know how it is. And I just know what I see, which is basically movies at this point. So yeah, there's a just rambling diatribe about the Joker. But I'm on the fence. I'm about done with liking the Joker the way I'm starting to see him.
Yeah, I hear you. In keeping with that theme, I'll throw this one up, and that's Harley Quinn. That's Harley Quinn to me. And it's hard for me. I know it's a kid's book. It just kills me when people say that. Oh, the Animated Adventures is a kid's book. They're comics. They're technically all kids' books until you get into the 90s, into late 90s, early 2000s, when they start really getting rough. You want to talk graphic novels? Okay, I'll give you that for adults maybe, but it's a comic. It's a kid's book. They're all kids' books. So, but let me tell you, this one, that's Harley Quinn. When you start getting into, it's also my preferred Joker, by the way, but when you start getting into the Amanda, is it Amanda Connor or I think it's Amanda Connor, Tony Daniel run of Harley Quinn, it starts out okay. It divulges very quickly and gets into the Harley Quinn kind of that we have now on the TV screen. And that's just not my favorite, which is really like the new 52 Harley, new 52/Suicide Squad Harley. That's what Simon of Simple Simon calls it. And I have to agree with that. This daddy's girl with the short shorts and the, I mean, it's cute for what it is, but it's one of those things where when you take the villain too far away from the hero, they start becoming something different and too different. And I feel like that's where the Harley Quinn went. When you took her away from the Joker, it took away the craziest part of her personality. And now she's just a crazy girl, who acts stupid and says stupid things. And it doesn't really have any real powers, I mean, to me, what made her what made her a real good villain was not her ability to be menacing by herself, but the fact that she loved the Joker so much that she would step in front of the Joker to protect him from Batman or anybody else. Yeah. And so she didn't have to be the boss villain because the Joker was already the boss villain. She just had to be someone that was more difficult for Batman to deal with because he had some measure of pity for her because she actually loved the Joker and he knew how self-destructive that was. So you don't have to really beat her up and take her down and we have to stop Harley at all costs. It was more like, how do I deal with Harley while not hurting her too bad and then get to the Joker because she's slowing me down? You know, that makes more sense. And that's a perfectly valid role. A number one henchman is great, you know, a sidekick even. But once you made her own thing and now she doesn't need the Joker anymore and she's on her own, well, now she's just a crazy chick wielding a mallet too heavy for her to lift. And I'm done. You know, I'm over it at that point. You know, I'm also not the type who, you know, I think I said it in another stream, but if anyone out there has an ex-wife, then we don't think crazy is sexy anymore. Like that's for young guys who, you know, but like Harley Quinn is not sexy to me. She's a crazy chick and she's too far crazy. You know, if anybody has any, I know you guys don't, but anybody's got an ex-wife out there, that's it. You're no longer attracted to, you know, bat crap crazy is not on your radar anymore. You're done with that. You avoid that at all costs. So just saying.
I'll tell you, obviously, I don't think Harley Quinn is a good role model for young girls. She's definitely not wife material.
Nope.
But I have to say, I really like the Margot Robbie Harley Quinn. It's just a fun character to watch, and she's a good actress. And the accent could be toned down a little bit. I'm not big on that Long Island accent. It's too Long Island. It's too far out there. You know, Bob, you're from up there. You know what I mean?
Yes, I know what you mean. And it really goes well with the character. It's another red flag.
Yeah, I mean, that character would not be from Long Island. I feel like that character's more from, like, I don't know, Yonkers or something, really, honestly, or maybe Bronx, whatever. Yeah, I mean, she's definitely got Long Island style, but I like they're trying to give her like leading roles as a character in the comics and the movies and not be dependent on the Joker to have success as a character. And I get that, and I don't have a problem with it. I think the Margot Robbie one was good, or Robbie, however you say it. But yeah, it's a bit much. I can only take her in like small doses even then. But I definitely think the outfit and the costume has improved over time. I don't like that whole, like, it doesn't have to be literally a jester, a Harley Quinn outfit. You know, you could update that a little bit, and I think they have, and I don't have a problem with how it's been updated, especially in the modern comics. I agree.
I agree. The new look doesn't necessarily, I mean, it's a little trashy, but I don't think.
I think she's smarter in the comics than they make her in the movies, though. In the movies, she's kind of like stupid all the time.
Yeah. And
but
crazy.
She's smarter in the comics, I think. I've read, a few here and there from the 90s with her, but she seems has a little more.
In the comics, sometimes she is ditzy, but
yeah, she's a little flighty here and there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the character, but she puts plans together and she thinks things out, and she's trapped
Batman several times. Yeah.
She's scheming, but in the movies, she just seems like she flies by the seat of her pants and just does whatever, and she doesn't think things through, and she doesn't care about consequences. And I feel like that's a little far removed from the actual character, but I like the look. It's been updated well. I don't have a problem with it. I think it's cool. I mean, I feel like if there was a girl like that really out there wreaking havoc like that, that is how she would dress.
I agree. I'm just not signing up to buy her a drink. That's it.
No, I mean, look, I would do that. She's good for one night, but not.
No, that may all be all you live through.
I was gonna say that's expensive one night there, DS.
Yeah, I mean, in my younger years, I would definitely go out and party with her for sure.
I'm out. All right, Roger, sober us up. What do you got?
I'm way out of there. It's not worth it. Not worth it for one night. You know what I mean? Not worth it at all.
Nope.
Well, okay.
Who knows what to wake up with?
You know, this
Hey,
is sort
Mike.
of the elephant in the
Fucking-
room, right? Because everybody knows we were going to get to Heroes Reborn eventually. So let me take one for the team here and start this off. This abomination that occurred in 1996, right? First of all, let me state that I understand why Marvel did it. They were crashing and burning. I think a lot of titles were selling less than 40,000 copies, which was abysmal for Marvel.
They'd kill for those numbers now.
I know, but still, I mean, for that time, if you were under 100,000, you know, normally you would get canceled, but because there were iconic long running titles, they were trying to see if they could stick it out, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So they obviously, a short recap, they were desperate, so they went to former employees Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee over an Image and gave them the keys to the kingdom for Captain America, Avengers, Fantastic Four, and Iron Man. Spider-Man and X-Men were still selling pretty well, but the Avengers titles and Fantastic Four were really in the tank, right? I don't have so much a problem with the Jim Lee. They sort of rebooted their origins and they sort of contracted all the different events into those 1 year, about 13 issues. But Captain America, that's where I find it unforgivable, and that's where I stopped buying Captain America. Right, this is the last issue of the regular run, which was by Wade and Garney, which I enjoyed. I thought it was well done. They went into the aspects of his relationship, of his super soldier serum, how it was running out, how he had to depend on the Red Skull to get that fixed. He had kind of old girlfriends come back into his life, etc. I thought it was interesting stuff. But no, they went and gave it to Rob Liefeld. Not only the art, which was bad enough, but also the writing. The man can't write his way out of a paper bag. All right, and
agreed.
And he rebooted his origin, in the most inane way you could believe. Like, you couldn't believe what was going on there. And then, of course, we all seen the barrel-chested Captain America with the little wings instead of the A. I mean, those are changes that are totally unnecessary. It's still the same character. Why do you have to change his physique and his look? And then, Sam Wilson was now super powered because he was dying, and Steve Rogers had to give him his blood transfusion. It was a mess. It's such a mess that Marvel, after 6 issues, said, "Sorry, can't." It's sold like the first 2 issues, and the rest tanked again, back to the previous point. So that I think who took it over? I think Jim Lee did take it over and finished out the run there with Jeff Loeb, I believe. I don't remember. It was such a mess. I jettisoned that mini series from my collection, and to me, if I could get mind wiped, so that never existed. Okay, if there's a Spock out there that can do that to me, please come over to Tallahassee, Florida, because I don't want
Jackson Roy Kirk. We need you in Tallahassee, Florida.
calling
Jackson Roy Kirk.
that stains, my hero, the character that, perhaps above all else I admire, his tenacity, his loyalty, his willpower, everything that exemplifies, the human being trying to be an individual and trying to do the best for everyone. Something that we can emulate even today. And he just took it and flushed it down the toilet. It wasn't, I don't really blame Rob Liefeld. I blame Marvel for giving it to Rob Liefeld,
you can blame Rob Liefeld.
Well, it was a
payday.
It was a payday. He did the best with the talent that he had, which was not that great, but back then people thought he was the dude,
Yeah, but look, Rob Liefeld is like the Acura NSX. It was cool for a minute in a very specific time in the late 80s and early 90s, but overall it's not good.
No, not good.
No. Like that car, they came out with a bunch of stupid stuff that was popular for a minute in the late 80s and early 90s, and I feel like Rob Liefeld is one of those. But yeah, I mean, look, I think he's a terrible artist and his writing is awful, but he's super popular and he's created some big characters, so he deserves his place in the annals of comics. But yeah, he sucks. So I don't know if you can say both of those things in the same sentence, but that's how I feel about him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
he was doing big books and big characters, and he came up with some big characters that last to today, and they're super popular. And yeah, I mean, he's, you've got to talk about him if you're talking about comics in the 80s and 90s. You can't not talk about him. But yeah, then again, I think he's terrible at everything pretty much. So yeah, I don't know.
You got to give him credit in that he turned his talent and he made a brand out of it.
Yeah.
And he sold a lot of comics in the 90s, which were, again, in my opinion, very fluff, very lowest common denominator, but they sold, and the characters were just totally blown out of proportion. Except, I'm not even going to go into those details, but regardless, that was part of the problem of the Heroes Reborn. I put a few more. The Iron Man was done by Jim Lee. It was okay, but when you're trying to redo the Avengers and you're trying to sort of differentiate them from the previous, in other words, the continuity that was there for 30 some years was essentially shredded. And, it was supposedly existed into a pocket universe created by Franklin Richards. It was a mess. It was messy. It was very messy. It wasn't, the comics themselves were not terrible, but the concepts were just, desperate. It was just a desperate measure by Marvel, which in fact, it only lasted a year and they had to go back. And I think they gave the line to Walt Simonson and then they went back with kind of new continuity. And at that point, to me, as a long-term Marvel reader, that was a good time for me to say, I've had enough. I've been dealing with crummy stories for a few years, but now dealing with crummy stories that I can't relate to is beyond the pale. So I dropped my Avengers with 401, I do believe. Iron Man, there was Teen Tony, there was the Crossing storyline that was before the Image guys, and that was bad enough. But once they started with the new Iron Man 1, Captain America, et cetera, Avengers 1, I was out because it wasn't the team that I knew. It was some penumbra of a team that I knew, but it wasn't the actual characters. They had changed way too much for me.
Yeah, I don't have too much of a problem with the teams. They can change them in and out and try new things, and it's sort of like a sports team. You can love the sports team, but from year to year, they have different players they draft and different coaches, and it's not always a group that you like, but you still like the team. That's sort of how I feel about the Avengers. I'm okay, do what you want on those. I like the team, and sometimes I'll root harder than others. But Captain America, just to go back to that, again, that is like, for me, like Ghost Rider. That is a character that you just don't ever mess with. There's other characters you can mess with and change and update and retcon and all this other stuff. But Cap and Ghost Rider just need to be constants because especially Cap, even more than anyone else, represents a certain thing and has a certain look and a certain personality that is a constant and enduring principle of our country and like of our people. You know what I mean? It's not, it shouldn't be updated. It shouldn't be changed. It is what it is. And it's like it's the enduring principles of freedom that he represents. And, I guess they could have different people take up the mantle of Captain America. And they've done that from time to time on a limited basis. And I don't have a problem with that, but the character you shouldn't see a lot of changes in the character other than, some people will step in and out of it. But yeah, that's a character you don't mess with, in my opinion.
I agree. It's when it's iconic like that. I mean, you could, like you said, you could bring in other, like Captain America. There were other Captain Americas that took his place temporarily, but that was part of a plot line or a storyline that ultimately got resolved, and the original character came back. But when you change them so perfunctorily, so at such a deep level, that's why they had to create that pocket universe, because Marvel wants to believe that didn't exist. J Hood had a very good comment. They did it better with the Ultimates. Yeah, that's correct, because that is a separate continuity, a separate comic line where other things occurred, but the regular continuity kept going. This one here interrupted the regular continuity. In fact, the other comics that were ongoing sort of said, "Hey, where are the Avengers and all this stuff? They're gone." And that is what I have a problem with. I don't mind you doing another series that had different continuity, like the Ultimates did. They had the Avengers, they had the Spider-Man, etc. And a lot of the MCU is based on that kind of line. But to change the character so that it's unrecognizable to those of us who loved them for 30 years, I think was, again, beyond the pale.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. They stink.
I'll tell you what, though, with Cap, I really like the updated uniforms and costumes he has in the MCU.
Yeah, I think they're pretty solid.
Yeah,
I think that's some of the best.
They have like that dark blue uniform that looks like bulletproof, sort of really midnight blue costume. I like the costume, the shields, and all that stuff in the movies. They've done a good job. He doesn't have to have the primary colors, the primary red, white, and blue all the time. In the MCU, I think his costume was badass. It's good. But I feel like the MCU Cap is true to the Cap, and maybe it looks like in the comics they've strayed from that. But the MCU one seems pretty solid to me.
Yeah, I think it is pretty solid.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
I'm not a huge Cap fan. I didn't really read Cap that much ever, but the Cap that I envision is the one in the MCU. That's what I envision Cap to be. So I'm happy with him in the movies so far. It's been good.
Well, that's pretty close to the Cap in the comics. I mean, there's some subtle differences, but you have that same kind of, that somebody with like an indomitable will who is sort of like put in a situation that most of us could never understand. A man totally out of time, but yet still somebody like that could crush knowing that all your family and friends are dead, but he persevered beyond that. His spirit is it's indomitable. It's just uncrushable, and that's the kind of person that I really do admire. That no matter what's in front of them, they always overcome it. And that's something that in my life I needed to see, and it really did affect me. It helped me throughout my life. So that's why I was sort of upset about it, if you hadn't noticed.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes from any of the MCU movies, of any character in any movie, is when it's one of the Avengers. It might be the first Avengers movie where they're flying in the plane. They captured Loki, and Thor swoops in and grabs Loki from the plane and swoops back out. And Cap says he's going to go after him. Yeah. And what's her face says, "Don't mess with them. They're basically gods." And he says, "There's only one God, ma'am, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that."
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, he's got his values. He's got his American values that are his. Not everybody has to have the same values, but those are his values, and he's true to them. And he doesn't make any apologies for it. And he doesn't care if he's outmatched. He's going to do what he thinks is right, and he knows what he thinks is right, and he's committed to it. It's just such a good line. It's just exactly what embodies what he is what I think.
It's my favorite. He's my favorite character of the MCU until after Avengers. After the first Avengers movie, I don't like what they did with him in Civil War. I really didn't like what they did with him in Cap 2. Even though I like the
Winter
movie.
Soldier.
Yeah, I didn't like what they did with him in Winter Soldier, even though I liked the movie. And they strip him of a lot of those values, which I know happens in the comics as well.
Yeah.
But I still really enjoy Cap as a purist, and the first Captain America and the Avengers movie, those are perfect to me.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can, if you want to make this, disgruntled with America sort of image. I know there's a lot of progressives in comics these days that want to, sort of go after the American patriotism and traditional values and conservatism and all that. That's fine. You can make whatever new characters you want or use some of the existing ones, but Cap is Cap. You know what I mean? You want to come up with something else, cool, but don't undermine what Cap is, because that is who
hands off. Hands off.
Just make up somebody else who's got like a Punisher attitude about things, where he feels like he's been wronged and he's out against the world sort of attitude. But Cap is not that. You know what I mean? Cap will always do the right thing no matter what.
Or try to.
Yeah, what he deems to be the right thing. He doesn't ever go against his values.
He wasn't always successful. That's not the point. The point is that he tried no matter what the odds are, no matter he never let the odds or the situation dictate whether it was the right thing to do. He always did it, even if it cost him, physically or mentally or whatever. And that's something that we can admire. Somebody with that kind of honor, to me, is somebody that we should emulate.
Yeah, agreed.
Here.
Here.
And look, you get a lot of these modern changes to characters have a political motivation to them. That's cool. They're entitled to that. I am not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm a libertarian with traditional values. And so I don't like when looks like they sometimes search out the characters with the most traditional values to try to ruin them or change them, when there's plenty of other characters out there with different value sets you can just use or create new ones. You don't have to mess with Cap. I mean, I feel like that's some of what's behind it, honestly.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, but Bub is out looking for something. Yes.
Yeah, I can hear him back there looking for something.
He's out looking for something.
I've been looking for this book for 30 minutes, man. I can't. Oh, curses. I hate it when that happens. All right.
Oh,
so who's next? Is it me?
Yeah, go for it.
I think it's DS.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. DS spends so much time talking about our books, I forgot to look at his. All right, what you got there, DS?
That's kind of the point. We can interrupt each other and expound.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Thor is my favorite character. Obviously, I grew up with Thor, and again, like Cap, he has his own values. Although he loses his temper a lot easier than Cap. Cap doesn't really ever lose his temper. I mean, maybe a little bit now, but traditionally he didn't. But Thor loses temper all the time, and he will go after friends and family and allies. And, he has a lot of weaknesses as a person, and it makes him real. But, the original Thor is sort of channeled into a human, where it's sort of a melding between the god and the human, and that's Thor. And there have been different humans that have been Thor. So look, when they changed Thor into a woman, that's where they lost me. And I don't read new comics, but Jane Foster as Thor is better left as a what if, and a terrible one at that, in my opinion. Okay? It's like if they make it, look, Thor is not, it's not like I don't know, it's not a title, it's a dude. His name is Thor, you know what I mean? It's the dude, and yes, he represents a certain type of masculinity, and he's an heir to a king, heir to a throne. He's got an adopted brother, and there's so much about him that you cannot replace with Jane Foster. And then pair that with he's unworthy. He's always worthy, although he struggles and he has missteps and learns throughout experiences. He's not unworthy, and that's just so messed up to me personally, because I have such a strong emotional connection to the character that just really bothers me. So, I don't care what character or what human or what actor portrays him, but Thor is a certain character with a long history, and you can't just put a woman in that, and especially Jane Foster with cancer. And he's unworthy. I mean, just screwing up the whole thing, man. It just ruins the whole idea of Thor, in my opinion. So there you go. There's
that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. Well, I think I agree with you. I mean, in all regards, the only thing I would say is that I think Marvel did that because, they're desperate. I mean, they can't seem to find a way to handle a character that will sell consistently, and so they're throwing things against the wall to see if it's novel enough, if it's dynamic enough, if it's just so way above the top enough that people start to pay attention. But Thor has always been noble, but impulsive. He's intelligent, but he's kind of he's very emotional in that sense. If when he goes into a battle, and the other warrior for let's say it's a 1-on-1 battle, disrespects him or says he's stronger than he is, Thor's not going to give up until he is destroyed. That's just the nature. It doesn't make sense, right? But that's
he has the ego. He has the ego of a Norse god. That's the idea.
Right.
Yeah, he reminds me. Look, he's like a comic embodiment of a medieval knight. Is how I see him. He's impulsive. He's emotional. He's always up for a battle, and he gets angry and he makes some bad decisions. And yeah, he's like the embodiment of sort of a medieval knight. Like you could put his personality into a medieval knight, and you sort of have the same thing. And then it's just not conducive to a Jane Foster battling cancer. It just doesn't make any sense, man. And Marvel's struggling to want to try new things. Yeah. All right, well, don't stick with some of the stuff that you have that's like staples that work, and then try other things at other places. They've changed and altered a lot of characters. The Iron Man changes. Yeah, that could work. That makes sense as a storyline. I get it. Yeah, I totally could go with that. But Thor and Cap, and Ghost Rider, I feel like they are just what they are.
all the ones DS has mentioned.
Part of it is my personal value system, and I'm starting to get to the age where I can officially be called old, and that's fine. Oh, man. And some of it is my emotional attachment and my sentimentality for these characters when I was younger, which inspired my passion in comics in the first place. And so I don't like to see them messed with. And I'm okay messing with other stuff, but I don't like other things to be messed with. But look, when I remember reading Thor, I was a little confused as to why they had to give a new human the Thor mantle, or why it got taken away from him at some points. It was exciting, and it flowed as the story arcs over the years. And yeah, I could do that. But then you put a whole other character in that people who gravitated towards Thor can't relate to. That's your fan base for the character. I can't relate to Jane Foster with cancer as Thor, and I can't relate to him being unworthy. So they don't need to be that real. Like, I just want characters I can relate to and that I like for specific reasons, and that's why I like them. And if you change that, you're certainly allowed to, but then I don't like them anymore because now they're not what I liked in the first place.
Yep, I agree. Yep.
And I feel like with Spider-Man, they've just created other Spider-Men. Is sort of what they've done. That's the way to do it, man. They got Miles Morales. He's not Spider-Man. I mean, he's his own character. You still have Peter Parker, and you now have Miles Morales. They can coexist, and you can change. You don't have to change the character. Just make a new one, even if it's very similar. Like Miles and Spider-Man are very similar but very different, and it works.
Yeah.
But I don't read Thor comics anymore, so it's not like I stopped buying them because it already wasn't. So anyway, that's my Thor rant.
Yeah. Well, in the late '90s, Thor was really not a well-written title.
It's terrible.
I mean, the bare-chested Thor that no longer was a god. Like DS says, I understand that Odin needs to teach him a lesson, but like for the 16th time, obviously it's not working, Odin. Let's try some other techniques here. Okay. And that's what got me.
They were kind of stuck in a Superman 60s loop, where Superman would lose his powers every third issue. Right. Like, oh, how can this man be stronger than Superman? How is Lois stronger than Superman? What's happening? Jimmy's stronger than Superman. Like, they just kept doing that over and over and over again.
Yep. And plus it gets rid of some of the, there's not just like the characters. There's the interactions that the characters have with other characters throughout history, and they build a history between themselves. Like, for instance, like on this issue, Thor versus Hulk. That's an ongoing rivalry. That's Yankees and Mets. You know what I mean? And when you put Jane Foster as Thor, not only have you changed Thor, you've gotten rid of Thor versus Hulk. Because you can't do Jane Foster versus Hulk. Doesn't even make any sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they don't have a history.
Right. There's no history. There's no reason.
Hulk, there's no reason there.
Jane Foster. I mean, he's got a long history. These two have a history together, and it gets rid of that. So a lot of the other rivalries and attachments and relationships around these characters are completely lost and destroyed. And you can't easily go back to that. You know, you can't fix it because it's being written into the history and the story arcs, and it makes it very difficult to go back to certain things. And comics are an escape from reality. I don't need any of these. I don't need Wolverine to ever get older. He can just be the same age all the time for decades while I read comics. Do you know what I mean? It's just doesn't. They don't have to grow. Thor can be the same Thor forever. I don't need him to grow older or anything. It's a comic. It's not real. I don't need it to be super realistic. There's stuff like that. So I don't know.
You're trying to escape reality, not be hit over the head with it.
Yeah, and Area 51's right. That's why sales are down. You know, sometimes I go on Comic-Con and look, and I think a lot of newer collectors don't realize the numbers of books that were bought in the 80s. If you dropped below 100,000 in sales in a month, man, you were on the verge of being canceled.
Oh yeah.
And you look now, and some of these titles are selling 20,000, 10,000, 30,000. I mean, man, in the 80s, you wouldn't even have gotten that close. You drop under 100 grand, and you're pretty much canceled.
Yeah.
So yeah,
sales in Livefield.
So I think a lot of people tacitly agree, but they don't want to get accused of anything, so they just don't speak out about it. But they're ruining a lot of characters for political reasons is part of it, and also just unskilled writers and artists a lot of times. And it's just a lot of interest is lost and sales are down. And 20,000 issues being sold is just historically pathetic.
Yeah.
Something's wrong.
Yeah, something very wrong.
For sure.
Very wrong.
Well, just to show that it's not a new trend, they've been replacing characters forever. So I always claim to have a complete run of Wolverine. That I'm saying it now for the first time. That's a lie because I skipped this part. I don't consider that part of the run. So in volume, I think 2 it is. When you get up to number 75, Wolverine is gone, and instead you have his son Dakin, who people like. He was a popular character. It worked for a little while, and some people have some nostalgia for him for sure by now. But there's his son taking over the Wolverine. He's got the claws and the whole routine, right? He's got 3 claws. And then later on, and I just skipped that whole run. I don't remember how many issues it is, but I just ignore that whole run. I don't consider that part. The Dark Reign part, I don't even consider it. And then later on, of course, Wolverine's still gone. So you get at the time, she was a biological clone, but then they retconned her later into being one of his daughters. And it's all weird. But then you have all new Wolverine, which is really just X-23 cosplaying as Wolverine. And so you get that. So I kind of take exception when you get these cosplay type characters who are just calling themselves by the same name. I get tired of it. And, so it's not new. I mean, it's been going on for a long time, regardless of whether it's politically motivated or just because they want to stimulate sales. It is. If you listen to Unruly Simeon, this title was crap before issue 75. So who cares, right? But it is what it is. So that's how I feel about it. I was really, really mad when they killed Wolverine and gave us this.
Yeah. So that's Laura Kinney is her name, right?
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay. Yeah. I like that character. I think that's a cool character. But look, you're doing a disservice to her and Wolverine by getting rid of Wolverine and making her Wolverine. What, is she not good enough to stand on her own? I think the original concept is awesome. It's like a female Wolverine, but she's a little different, and she's actually far more vicious than Wolverine. And then they just make her Wolverine. Well, what's the point then? You know what I mean? Just give us Wolverine. Right. If you're just doing Wolverine, give us the real one. And if you're going to do her, then make her own thing. And then they give her. I don't read that stuff, but I hear the same thing you're talking about out there about it. Yeah. But just if she's not Wolverine, then just let her be her own thing, and give her the exact same costume and call her the all new Wolverine. Then what's the point? We already have. We don't. They're
cosplay characters, and that drives me crazy.
I wonder why nobody buys this stuff. That's a super cool character with a lot of potential, and I think they should have her go her own way. And maybe they are doing that now. I don't know, but when you just dump the Wolverine persona on top of her, it's a disservice to her more than anything. And Wolverine's another one. kill off Wolverine, and then he's gone. I mean, yeah, I know they brought him back, but
terribly.
Yeah, I forget who.
I'm not collecting that run either. I got rid of all my copies of that.
To bring him back.
Yeah, I think they just put her in there because they had the name recognition of Wolverine. That was it.
Well, if Wolverine's selling, then why get rid of him?
Right, that's exactly right.
Oh, exactly right. But I'm saying I think that's why they didn't start with another title, because it had name recognition, and people, at least you're getting them in the door. Whether it's any good or not, well, that's to be seen.
So you guys
with She-Hulk, she's her own character. Like, yes, she's sort of like a female version of Hulk, obviously, but they didn't kill off Hulk and make her Hulk.
Nope.
No.
She's a different character with a different story and a different personality.
Yeah, she's She-Hulk, just like I don't get mad at Spider-Woman either, or any of those characters that are, Supergirl. That doesn't bother me.
But they're doing a disservice to female characters when they're just throwing the male persona on top of it. Then it's just insulting to the female characters when you're just making them the same as the male character, and they're not even good enough to stand on their own. And then to add insult to injury, they kill off the original one or get rid of it. It doesn't make any sense all the way around.
Patrick Wall's cashing in.
Female characters were never stronger than they were in the 80s. The best female comic characters ever were in the 80s, and they were some of the most powerful heroes, and they were so awesome. Particularly the X-Men is probably the shining example of what a female character can be. And now it's like they're not even trying. I don't know. It's a disservice to the female characters mostly, but then they're also undermining known commodities that people like, and it's just all around bad decisions, and then comics don't sell, and they wonder why.
So a couple of interesting things. We got Patrick Wall talking about Erica Slaughter, who I believe was he played Ponch and Chips. Is that correct? Or is that not right? Wasn't he in Chips? Erica Estrada? I think he was in Chips, but that's about as close to modern as you're going to get with this group tonight.
I don't know who Erica Slaughter is.
She is a modern, I wouldn't call her superhero, but she's an indie title. I don't know if it's Something's Killing the Children or or Who's Eating Me in the Dark, or one of those questions. One of those new books. Very highly acclaimed. So we give him credit for that. He just spent $2 though, because we mentioned a modern book. So I only owe him 18 now. So Not Near Mint has a fantastic point here. Eric O'Grady, Scott Lang. Now, I won't speak about Eric O'Grady because I'm not sure who that is.
Yeah, I don't know who that is either.
But I know Scott Lang, and I would say, because that's Ant-Man, right? That was the second Ant-Man.
Yeah, right.
It's the second Ant-Man, basically.
I guess by our definition of all that, he would be a cosplay character. However, he had the powers that were given to him by the suit. So I'm a little bit better with that. Like, even though I may not like the Riri Williams character, I'm okay with other people being Iron Man, basically. Like, War Machine or anybody that wants to put on that armor is basically that character now, But there's still different people inside, just like Scott Lang is a very different character from Hank Pym. I mean, they're nothing alike.
But Ant-Man is very conducive to having changes over time because they've changed the costume, the powers, the person in it so many times that is sort of the nature of the Ant-Man character. And they introduced the Wasp, and you can put anybody in that suit. It's sort of like that suit is used by who they have that can use it at the time for what they need to do. And it becomes from Ant-Man to Giant Man. They change the look of it. They throw in the Wasp, which is basically the same type of suit technology.
Right.
It used to be Hank Pym, and then he used Scott Lang for it, and they've had multiple changes over time. That's much more conducive to changes that are not abrasive to the characters, because different people can take up the various iterations of the suit for different reasons at different times, and it works fine. They could put anybody in an Ant-Man suit, and if you got a good enough story and a good enough writer, it works. I don't have any problem with that. It doesn't even have to be Scott Lang. The Wasp suits, all the suits could be destroyed except for the one last suit, and they have no more particles left. and she could jump in and be Ant-Man and save the day, and I'd be like, yeah, that's cool story arc there. So yeah, you can do it with Ant-Man.
Yeah,
I
think anytime it's passable technology, it totally works.
Yeah, and the difference there is that at that point, Ant-Man, the identity had been abandoned by Hank Pym. He was Yellow Jacket, and he was Giant Man, and he was Dr. Pym, etc. And so that sort of was a transfer with his blessing of that suit. Because remember, he had the Pym particles, Hank Pym, in his body. He didn't need the suit for that. So this was sort of like an ancillary way of creating this character, which was a new character at the time.
Roger,
yeah,
ancillary. I see what you did there.
Above-ism.
Oh boy,
Above-ism.
There it is. It's ancillary. Look at him go. Whee!
Hey, Mr. Gretzky, how you doing, buddy? Haven't seen you in a while. Good to be here. Good to have you here. So
Gretzky,
anyway, yeah,
9966.
Yeah, but I agree. That's kind of a little different situation than something where a character dies and then somebody else co-ops it. Because this one was a suit, and it was a different. The character had already been sort of defunct, so it was sort of like a reimagining of a different with the old character sort of passing the torch. That's a little
and it's like Iron Man with the suit. You don't need to put Tony Stark in a coma to have a new Iron Man. There's multiple suits, and already in the decades past, other people have been in some of Tony Stark's Iron Man suits. Anybody can put on one of those suits, and he has a whole different array of suits, and he has different Mark IV suit or whatever, and he has different suits with different abilities, and he gets updated over time, and different people have jumped in their suits and different suits. You don't need to put him in a coma to have somebody else, you know what I mean, go in Iron Man suit.
And Hank Pym,
you could write a story with a good writer can figure out a way for Riri to come into the picture and don an Iron Man suit where takes this main stage for a while without putting Tony Stark in a coma and making him the AI. That's true. I don't know. It's just dumb, really.
I agree. And the writing does make the difference, and where they place the original character makes a difference. I guess what we're trying to say collectively is that the nuance matters, and there are ways to transition characters. There's ways to have introduced new characters with the same name even, and there's ways not to. And it seems like they don't spend enough time carefully and artfully transitioning the characters as much as we'd like them, at least.
Well, and part of the problem is they are a lot of these writers that are writing comics now are younger, inexperienced, and they're not being edited properly or supervised properly. They're just, I don't know, the writing it's just not as fleshed out. It's just like throw a bunch of crap on a page and there's your comic. And yeah, people like to talk crap about Claremont drawing out a story arc for 15 issues. But he was a skilled writer with a lot of experience and a lot of passion. He put a lot of time into it. He had a lot of experience behind him writing. He was a great writer. Some of these writers now that they put on, I mean, they're just brand new. They came from somewhere they weren't even writing comics or anything. They don't research the characters. They're just thrown onto a book title, and the characters retconned however they want. They just make stuff up as they go, and it comes out lazy and shoddy. Yeah, and it's not even really their views or their political leanings, although that affects what they're writing. The writing is just not well done from and I've read some modern stuff here and there, mostly digital because I refuse to pay for any of it. And that's, from my reading books in the past, it's just the writing is just not quality writing is the main problem. There's a lack of creativity and experience in the writing.
Yeah. And I agree with this. You can have Rhodes take over Iron Man. That doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, he's done it a few times.
Yeah, he's done it a few times. I think anything tech. I think anytime it's just tech being passed around, I'm totally good with that. And it refreshes the storylines because you can still get the same action, basically, and the same power set, but you get new characters with motivations and ideas and strategies. And that's nice, So I actually like that when stuff like that passes around, but some of it just doesn't work, or they don't take the time to do it well. And anytime they just completely destroy the original character and just toss them in a bin, it's a little bit much. Yeah, so, and my point, like with X-23, is that she's a cool character on her own. Then when she takes over the Wolverine mantle, she's basically like a berserker type Wolverine, but female. And it's almost like they basically took the Wolverine character and tried to pin it on her, and it didn't make sense because she hadn't been around for 700 years being pissed all the time, you know? So it didn't match up, you know. What's she so angry about? So life should be pretty good, you know.
Yeah, I don't know why she's angry either. But I don't read the new stuff, but I sort of read about it, and then I've seen the movies and the character that I'm familiar with. I don't know why she's so upset.
Yeah, because she's just angry. She gets in a rage, you know, like her power is rage. It's terrible. It's terrible. But I like her when she's not wearing that silly costume and calling herself Wolverine. It happens. Oh, Roger, you're going last, but not because we saved the best for last, just because we saved Roger for last. I don't know what to tell you.
Right, and I got to be quick because my phone's running out of juice here.
Okay.
So I just wanted to finish with Master of Kung Fu. You all know my passion for this character, and he went out. He was somebody who was he didn't want to be in the spotlight. He didn't want to be who he became. He was totally misdirected by his father, which was Fu Manchu, into believing that he was doing something honorable and something to, magnanimous, and instead he found out his father was mischievous and sinister megalomaniac. And so all he did was to try to survive that what Fu Manchu saw as a slight upon him by his son, by not taking over or helping and taking over the world. And so Fu Manchu went after him with assassin after assassin after assassin, after plot after plot after plot, until finally Fu Manchu was vanquished in about issue 121 or so. And then he went through a few transitions there, and the series ended at 125 perfectly. He became a fisherman, peaceful, meditative, and and complete. And that's, to me, where that character ended. That's that is the Shang-Chi that I know, and now he's still out there somewhere fishing.
Yeah.
5 years later, they put him into another storyline where he drank this stuff which gave him like immortality or superpowers or something. That's not Shang-Chi to me. That's another origin for another character that is totally outside the morals and the framework of what this man was.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking about where I end a character, where it stopped, it was Master Kung Fu 125. Everything after that is dicta to me. It doesn't really matter.
Wow. What'd you think of the movie?
I haven't seen it yet.
What?
I haven't seen it yet. No.
Yeah,
I've been busy. I've been busy.
I've never been a reader of the comics. My only experience is the movie I watched, and I won't throw any spoilers out there, Roger. But I know it was this big headline, like Marvel's finally giving an Asian American headline role, as if Asian Americans don't have roles in Hollywood forever. So it's not the first of anything, but it's cool. I think there should be an Asian American character. And then I watched that, and it's like, yeah, I already know about Shang-Chi, but Asians only good for Kung Fu? I mean, you know what I mean? It's just so, it's just ironic that they're trying to put this out like they're promoting the first Asian American, which there's Asian Americans in Hollywood forever. So they're not doing anything new. And then, of course, it's a guy who knows karate, so stereotypical. But just the irony with that headline that they're pushing and then what they do with it is just so stereotypical. But the movie was decent. I thought it was all right. It was well done. I'd look forward to a sequel.
Yeah, cool. I think it should be good. And look at Mr. Gretzky chiming in. Thank you, sir. Welcome back. Please come every week.
Yes, please do. We need that positivity. We need that kind of inspiration.
Yep. Yeah, I mean that's fair. And DC's been doing it for long enough, that's for sure.
Oh, did you see what Mike put there?
We'll see. That's one every 5 rings. That's not that bad.
Oh, Lord. Well,
yeah. Honestly, though, I think I sort of zoned out. I put it on as sort of background and watched it while I was doing other stuff, and it was entertaining in that regard. I didn't sit and stare at the screen nonstop the whole movie, but I watched it sort of while I was doing something else, and yeah, I thought it was all right. It was decent. But I never read the comics. I don't know that the character was that true to the comics, but I don't really know. But it was entertaining. I thought it was good.
Yeah. Well, Mike's saying that this show's going a little long. Jackson Roy Kirk's already fallen asleep twice during this show. We need to go ahead and wrap it up, lest he fall asleep for a third time, beating Mike's record on Shang-Chi. So we need to fix that. Roger's juice is running out. He's got to go get some more apple juice. All right. So let's wrap it up, folks. Thank you all for joining us. We're an hour and a half in deep on this one, but we miss each other so much. We've been trying to do it every week, but it seems like it's falling to every other week. We'll see how that goes. We'll see if we can keep going. But basically, when everyone's schedule aligns, I hate to miss a show. So sometimes we might do it every week and might be every other week, but we're going to get some shows out to you. DS Comics, what have you got coming up on your defunct channel or any of the fledgling channels you wish to appear on soon?
Yeah, well, the Golden Guys, we have moved to Thursday nights. So this Thursday,
really?
Just with scheduling, including mine, we've had a tough time getting together on Tuesday nights lately. So we're moving into Thursday nights. It's a more available day for everyone that's involved in that show. So Thursday night, 10 p.m., Comic Core, Golden Age hangout chat, basically.
Perfect.
Nice.
You can go from Graders Notes to Golden Guys. That's perfect.
Yeah,
nice.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I like it.
I like Graders Notes. I catch you when I can, but I've missed a few of them. But I like Graders Notes. That's good stuff. I usually end up disagreeing, though, whenever you guys are bashing a book. I'm always like, man, I like that one. But,
I know, me too. They always pick books that I like to be mean about, especially Roger. He's really hard on the stories that I like. It's like, oh, man. Like
that's okay.
I like
that's
popcorn.
You know,
they go through each criteria and they rate each criteria. And it's if you've never read a book and you watch that show, you feel like you've read the book. And then,
pretty much, yeah.
We 3 different glasses on.
It's good stuff.
It's good stuff. All right, Roger. Who are you going to be gracing with your presence in between watching Shang-Chi movies?
Well, I'm doing the daily comic book advent calendar, which is a lot of fun. They're 45 to 50-minute shorts of.
Are they shorts? Because every time I turn one on, I have to turn my phone the other way to see it.
No, they're shorts. I put my phone, portrait way.
Okay.
And they come out as shorts, but anyway, it's just I got 25 comics from Comics Altruism for $25. He puts this sheet of paper in front with a number, and so every day I'm just opening them up and going gaga over the stuff that he's sending me. So it's a lot of fun. And next Saturday, Bub will be joining me and a few other fellas in the comic book Christmas show here on the Metarog channel, and it will be competition style. So be ready to watch because there will be a winner.
All I have to say is the other fellas better bring their tissues, pull them out of their bras, and start crying in their soup because old Bubsy's here to rock the house. Good luck.
I know you are. So that should be at 7:00 on Saturday on Metarog's channel. It should be a lot of fun.
All right, we're looking forward to that. I know I am. Reminds me, I got to tell the wife I'll be busy next Saturday. All right, sounds good. On the old Bub's Rooney channel, I kind of took this week off. This past week, I didn't put up any videos. I've been just kind of laying low. Honestly, just rewatching when I did that unboxing of like 80 comics. Man, that stream is hilarious. You guys, if you guys haven't rewatched it, You need to rewatch that stream. Roger's killing it the whole time. He must have took like his awake pills or drank a coffee or something before. And he is on fire. DS has got comments rolling all the way through. He's hiding in behind a dumpster at work or something so he can watch and text. I mean, it's just it was just so much fun. If you haven't seen that video, go back and watch it. It's 2 hours long, but you can start it out at any time, and it's just as funny as another time. It's just it's one of my favorite videos I put up all year. Big fun. And of course, No Faces Chat. We'll be back next week. Hopefully, whatever. We're going to experiment with a little bit with the format for these last couple of shows of the year. I say we, I mean me. And then these poor guys are along for the ride. So hopefully they don't ditch me. So we'll have a little experimentation over the next couple of weeks until I settle into a format for the new year, just to keep things fresh. But we're still going to be No Faces no matter what. Because obviously the talent that I've enlisted requires that for maximum viewing pleasure and comfort. So there you go. I'm pretty sure DS isn't wearing pants and Roger doesn't wear anything at all. So he had to switch to a leather seat because he was getting a little Velcro action every time.
I got socks.
He got
I
socks.
got socks on. Yeah.
Oh, on his feet this time. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
So all right, so that's what old Bubsy's got going on. I haven't been picking up a lot of books because I have my wife's birthday this month, plus Christmas, and I had my son's birthday last month. So you kind of feel bad with a lot of books coming in the house, and then Roger's phone died. He wants everyone to tell you to be blessed and be back. DS, what do you want to tell the fine folks at home?
To make sure you do your homework, and I just want to say this is the best multi-panel cover of all time.
Even better than Avengers Annual?
Well, that's not a multi-panel cover.
With Al Milgram? Yeah, it is.
Well, I mean Avengers Annual 10?
Yeah, with Rogue? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this one blows that out of the water.
It's pretty good.
Tough to pull off a cover with panels on it. This one does. So anyway.
All right, we'll take it.
Throwing up there for eye candy, but yeah, make sure you do your homework.
Yes, coming soon to a sale near you. And I'll just tell everybody to read a comic and don't apologize for the glare. Bye-bye. We'll catch you next week or a week soon thereafter. Bye-bye.